This is a video that I've been afraid to make for 2 years. You see, 2 years ago, August 29th of 2024, I was fired out of the blue from a job that I'd been in for 9 years, in an industry, aviation, that I had been in for 25 years. And even though I'm bound by a non-disclosure agreement due to a settlement, I didn't make anything. I can't really talk about the details, but I can tell you about my experience. Way back in 1999, when I was with my fiancée, now my wife, she and I were flying back from Atlanta visiting her brother. And on the plane ride home, I looked at her and I said, I could do this. I can fly airplanes. And she looked at me and she goes, we're getting married in like a year. What are you talking about? You could fly airplanes. You're a business manager. And I just decided, no, the sky is what was calling to me. And so I decided to become a pilot. So in April of 2001, my wife and I jumped in my car and we drove from upstate New York, Queensbury area, all the way to Tucson, Arizona, so that I could attend flight school. And I went there from April 2001 until I got my flight instructor in August of 2001. And I got my first student in September of 2001. Yeah, you guessed it. 9/11. I had just become a certified flight instructor. I had just taken on students when the tragic 9/11 happened. And I'm out in Tucson, Arizona. And I have no idea what I'm going to do next. So as crazy as it sounds, I literally just got in my car on November 1st and drove home. I walked into the place that I got my job, Richmore Aviation, and I asked to be a flight instructor. And the guy said, wait a minute, we talked on the phone just last week. You don't have enough hours. And I handed him a piece of paper and I said, please fax this to your insurance company and see if you can get a waiver. At lunch, he called me and he said, I don't know how, but they said I could hire you. And then a year after that, while I was a flight instructor, I just walked into their charter department. And I looked at the girl who was the receptionist and I said, who do I need to see about a job? And of course, people knew me as a flight instructor. And she said, hold on, chief pilot's right in the back. And I was like, wait, no, I'm not dressed for this. I'm in like a polo shirt and shorts. And the guy came out and he looked at me and we chatted. And he asked me how many multi-engine hours I had, twin engine. And I said, I have 5.2 hours, but I'm ready to fly. And I got the job. At Richmore, I went from flying piston twin airplanes, a Cessna 310, up to flying a Gulfstream G3. I flew all kinds of jets in the middle, King Airs as well. And it was a great time and I enjoyed every minute of it. Except I was missing my family. I had been gone from home so much that I had counted that over a 10-year span, I had been in a hotel somewhere for 4 years in total. 4 out of 10 years, I was away from home sleeping somewhere else. And that was beginning to wear on me. So I transitioned out of flying. I went home and then we moved down to Florida, Orlando area, so I could get a job at a flight simulator company. And I was training people there. I began as a flight instructor, teaching people in ground schools and in flight simulators, full motion. These things are amazing. And I worked my way into management. I got a program manager job where I was overseeing one of the programs. And while I was doing that, I started to learn more about how we did things around the office. And that made me want to help people more, so I became the director of standards, the person who's in charge of all the federal aviation regulations at the facility. Because I loved all that kind of stuff anyway, and I just loved regulations. And I decided, take all this information that I have so that I can help people and improve the process. And for me, I almost wonder if that's where the friction began. Was it in trying to improve processes and help things be a little bit more streamlined? Stepping on people's toes who may have created these processes, people who'd been there a whole lot longer than me. And I soon found myself being asked about becoming a program manager again, not the director of standards. And I kind of saw the way things were going. And I said, okay, all right. And I took that job. And it wasn't long after that, I got a phone call out of the blue one day. And I was told, your employment is hereby terminated. That was tough. I'd worked for that company for 9 years, and I had devoted every ounce of my life to it. My literal family life was suffering because I was putting so much of myself into my work. I can't even say it. I can't even tell you the reason, because I'll get sued. I'll get sued if I tell you the reason why I got fired, but I can tell you this. Over the 7 years of my management experience, I had given vacations countless times, and I never once had to get permission for it. And here I am 2 years later, this month. I didn't go back. I decided that all that money and all that pressure, it just wasn't worth it for my soul. It wasn't worth it for my heart. I decided that I wanted to teach meditation, something that I had been practicing since 1983. And so in November of 2024, I started to teach meditation at my local yoga studio, Longwood Yoga Shala. And between November 2024 and May of 2025, when I started my TikTok channel, exactly 0 people came to my meditations. But that day that I pressed go live on TikTok on May 5th of 2025, and I had 1,000 people show up. And then the next day, 2,000 people show up. And I decided May of 2025 that I had found this thing that I'd been looking for ever since I was a kid, that I just wanted to help people. That becoming a pilot, I was able to help people, but not to the best of my abilities. And becoming a director of standards and a flight instructor and a program manager, I could help people to a certain degree, but not to the level of ability that I have. And so instead of going so fast in my jet, I'm sitting still, and I'm trying to help other people find their stillness. I've been scared to make this video because it makes it real what happened 2 years ago. And that's not an easy thing at 58 years old, where I am right now. I used to make $160,000 a year, and I make maybe $160 a week right now doing my TikTok. But I feel abundant. It's not the material wealth. It was all of what I thought that I was. And in refinding who I really am, I've kind of realized all along that I've always known I just wanted to help people. And I didn't know what that looked like. This is what it looks like now. I'll see you out there.